Hey, what's up guys? My name is Danny. You are watching the Married to Angie vlog. Thanks so much for taking the time today to watch this video. I just want to share some things that I've been thinking about this morning. So I turned on the camera and here I am. You know, as I woke up this morning, the one thing that was just stirring in my mind, just kind of in my environment was, you know, surrounding yourself with the right people. How important it is to plug into the right resources and the right people and the right environment, and how that influences our everyday lives. And so I got to write it in my journal. You know, I do a morning routine, and at times I write, and I honestly recommend that for anyone. So as I was writing this morning, just stirring on, you know, the thought of, you know, the importance of the people we surround ourselves with, I started, you know, writing a little bit about that. And you know, I think it's crucial to surround yourself with the right kind of people in your life, because really it determines the course of your life. You know, there's an old saying that goes something like this: you are who you hang around with, you know, and something like that. And you know, so I wrote a little bit. I went about my day. I was out walking, and you know, then something happened to me. It was pretty interesting. I saw this little dog just coming my way, wagging its tail, cute little thing. You know, it was almost following me as I was passing the neighborhood. And so I turned around, and you know, I bent over to let it, you know, come closer to me. And little did I know that there was actually another dog coming behind it, you know, more at a distance. And the moment I bent over, you know, that dog in the back started barking, and the dog right in front of it, who was at first wagging its tail, happy, you know, eager to meet me, started barking as well. And I was a little puzzled, because at first it was wagging its tail, now it's barking, and it's like rushing me, almost like it's gonna attack. So I kind of take a step forward to the dogs, you know, and they scurry away and then come back again. And it was a little bit of a step back, step forward for me. And all of a sudden, the dog in the back just runs to the house it came from. And you know, and I'm still kind of going back and forth with the first dog, which I thought was friendly. And before you know it, I hear this whoo, 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 big old dog, and there I go, just walking away. And I'm like, whoa, you know what I mean? The second dog goes back and gets its bigger friend to really intimidate me. And you know, I kept walking, and I started thinking about that, how there are people and there are things that really dominate and influence us in our lives, throughout our lives. And like that second dog that influenced the first little friendly one with that first bark, that little friendly guy just turned on me and then goes back to influence the bigger guy. Many things in our lives can also influence the course of our lives. Really get embedded in our subconscious, and you know, become something we believe and something we live out. And you know, as I was thinking about that, you know, the passage, an ancient scripture came to mind, and that's what I want to talk to you about today. You know, guarding your heart. You know, I think that's a very important concept, you know, guarding what comes in. And you know, there are different ways we could do that. We'll talk about it, but let me just read this passage to you so you can get a better understanding of it. It says, guard your heart above all else, for it determines the course of your life. And as I started just letting that simmer in my mind and think about what that actually meant in my mind, to my life, you know, it really made a lot of sense. You know, everything that I'm living out today is a result of what I let in at one point or another. And it's important for us to guard our heart, to really put up a filter to screen what we allow in, because ultimately what we allow in is what's going to come out. And as I was thinking about that, I thought, like, how can I make this like a practical principle for, myself and for others? How do we even, just dissect that? Guard your heart. And I started thinking about a time in our lives when we got broken into. We got robbed, and they came in right through the front door. And I started thinking about that concept, how sometimes, we leave the door open. Even though we didn't leave the door open on that case, but that's the example I came to remember, and that's how things get into inside of our house, so to speak, right? They come in through an open window or an open door, and, you might just barely leave it cracked. You know what I mean? And that's how things penetrate. And I started thinking about the doorways that are in our lives, the doorways that we have physically that allow things to come in. And I want to share these things with you. Hopefully they're helpful to you in some kind of way. Now, the first one is the doorway of our hearing, of our ears. We often let things into our lives through our ears. That's one of the doorways. So I ask you, what are you listening to? Is it positive affirmations? Is it or is it gossip and destruction and chaos? Are you taking the time to listen to great audiobooks, the audio Bible, or whatever it is? Are the people who surround you speaking life, and is that what's coming into your hearing? Because ultimately that's a doorway that is coming in, and it will eventually penetrate your heart. So the first doorway that I see, or the first place we need to put a bodyguard, so to speak, to guard our hearts, is our ears. Filtering what comes into our ears, being a little more selective about what we allow in, and the hearing. That's huge. And number 2 is even bigger. Honestly, I'm setting these up in the way I think are from least important all the way to the most important. The second one is our eyes. I think this is even bigger. Our eyes are a tremendous doorway. Huge doorway that takes snapshots and recordings of images and expressions, and combined with our hearing, it is powerful. And it's so important to guard our eyes. These are an entry point to the things that will ultimately be embedded in our hearts. So what are you watching? What are you entertaining yourself with? Is it just meaningless, television? Or are you watching something that's edifying and that's uplifting? Or you might even ask yourself, what have I seen in my past? Because that has definitely been embedded in us. It might have been some trauma. It might have been, some chaos. And those things come in through our eyes, and let me tell you, they burn an image into our hearts, So the eyes are an even bigger doorway to allowing things to come in to our lives and ultimately our hearts. And that's where we need to put up a guard as well. Our eyes, what we see. Be selective about what you're allowing to come into your life through your eyes and through your ears. And the third place that I feel we have to put a bodyguard. In fact, put 2 or 3 there, because this is even bigger than the first 2 areas, is our mind. Guard your mind. Because honestly, what is going to come in through our ears and through our eyes, if we allow to live there, if we allow them to just roam or just reside, in our minds, that ultimately will be what is embedded in our hearts. My mom used to always say this, and she used to remind me. I remember being just a young man. I was probably like between 14 and 15, 16. She used to say, things like, it starts with a thought. The moment you allow a thought to come into your mind, you have a choice to let it continue to simmer, or to replace it, to substitute it with another thought. Because the fact is, you can only think one thing at a time. So if you're immediate, if you're quick to stop what's coming in and replace it with something else, that is huge, and that is a great habit to develop in your life, because it will help you to overcome certain mentalities, so to speak. It might be a negative mentality you're beginning to let simmer. It might be a struggle. It might be thoughts of worry and fear. Whatever it is, substitute it. She used to say, what you let come into your mind and be there eventually will make its way to your heart, and after it reaches your heart, you will eventually act out on it, act upon it. And that's something that I've always remembered since I was a young man. That's something that's always stayed with me, and that's so true. And I want to take it one step further. What we let into our ears and into our eyes, it in a big way affects what we think about. That's what we continue to let linger in our minds, and eventually it makes its way down to our hearts, and from our hearts, like it says, guard your heart above all else, for it determines the course of your life. That's going to be something that we end up eventually acting out, living out in our lives. So I want to leave you with that, the importance of being selective about who we allow into our lives, what we allow into our lives. Guard your heart, for it determines the course of your life, whatever you let in. And I'll leave you with one last example. Honestly, like I said at the beginning, what is what I'm bearing today, the things that are coming from my life today are a result of what I let inside my life. So let the seeds that get planted into your mind, one day they're going to germinate, and they can only give what they can only produce their own fruit. And I'll give you an example. Hey, a mango, I like mangoes, okay? Mangoes, we say mango in Spanish. A mango will always have a mango seed and always produce more mangoes. You squeeze an orange, you're always gonna get orange juice. What you put into your life will be what comes out. And ask yourself the question, what do I want to radiate? What do I want my life to look like? What do I want to, bear, so to speak? What's what do I want to reproduce in my life? Maybe a little more practical way of understanding that. What are the things that I want to let out? And that's exactly going to answer the question to what it is that I need to put in. So I'll leave that with you once again. Something to think about. Guard your heart. And I love you guys. And remember to live on purpose. Until next time, bye.